The Boston Celtics, maybe next to LeBron James's destruction in the Eastern Conference from 2011 to 2018 between the Miami Heat and Cleveland Cavalier days. But this Boston Celtics team should not have a challenge going to the NBA Finals. If you watch that game Tuesday night against Cleveland, to me it's very clear the Celtics game plan is to shoot between 40 and 50 threes a game. Hope you make 20 of them. You bake in, you have 20 other twos, 20 threes is 60, 22 is 40. You get to 100 points. And if Boston is shooting as well as they have, it's going to be very hard for the Cavs to beat them because the Cavaliers are going to need Darius Garland, who has had a horrific postseason. They're going to need Karis LeVert, who only had a good game 7 for the most part in this postseason, has been bad. Same thing with Max Strus. Outside of a few key moments here and there, Strus has mostly been not great in this postseason. The Cavs are going to need those guys, specifically without Jared Allen, who may have had one of the weirdest injuries we've seen in a while in the NBA, this side of Kawhi Leonard, where at first it sounded like, he had bruised ribs. Now he has a bruised contusion. JB Bickerstaff and the Cavs keep saying we'll see, but nobody truly believes Jared Allen is going to play tonight. And I don't know many people that truly believe Jared Allen is going to play in this series when you read reports that Jared Allen can barely lift his right arm and that he has trouble sleeping. He reportedly took a rib from one of the Wagner brothers in game 4. And it just sounds like, it hit him in the right spot. And it's unfortunate for the Cavs, but when one man goes down, another guy steps up. And Evan Mobley, who's been pretty solid on the defensive end in this postseason, but offensively, outside of what I would say would be maybe game 1 and game 5 against the Knicks, has been very disappointing. We had 4 points in the first half against the Celtics, and then mostly took advantage in garbage time in the second half. What bothered me there was his pump fake on on Derek White. Instead of going up and dunking the ball late in the game, he pump faked him. There were many times he could have drove to the basket on Al Horford. And there was a report that came out earlier this year that the Cavs were disappointed in Evan Mobley's development. They felt like he'd be further along than now. And I think, maybe outside of Denver loses to Minnesota here, which for the record, we'll talk about in a minute, but I did make my first bet with my partner in crime over at Championship Rings, the show I do every Tuesday night, Josh Unger, on this series. I think the Cavs have some very interesting questions to answer. Again, I don't think they're going to win tonight against Boston. I think it could be a blowout again. If I had to guess, I think the Cavs will play very well in game 3. They should get that home. And then I think game 4 will be a dogfight. And if Boston wins that game, they'll close them out in 5 in the TD Garden. Um, it's not like the Celtics to me are this overpowering team. The other night it was Derek White and Jalen Brown, who I always thought with the ball in his hands is better than Jason Tatum. I always thought that Jalen Brown is the closer on that team, which to me is a problem for the Celtics when your best player, by some people in the media like myself, don't consider him to be your best player. I think it shows why the Celtics have not gotten over the top yet, even though they did make that one NBA Finals appearance. They got to a 2-1 lead against Golden State and then ultimately melted down. In the end, Miami without Jimmy Butler, broken team. Cavs without Jared Allen is a significantly worse team, and especially when Donovan Mitchell was the only one scoring. The Knicks, who last night obviously got a big contribution there from Dante DiVincenzo, from Josh Hart, but they're now without Mitchell Robinson. We already know they're without Julius Randle. Against Boston, especially if Kristaps Porzingis comes back, will that be an issue? The Knicks, obviously, Tom Thibodeau, the hard nose, plays 7, 8 guys, play them all 40 minutes, will eventually slow them down. I picked the Knicks against the Sixers because I did not think Joel Embiid was going to be healthy, and I don't trust the Sixers. I picked them against Indiana because I don't believe the Indiana Pacers even have anything close to a superstar. I think they have 3 very good players. Tyrese Haliburton once again disappeared in the second half last night. Pascal Siakam, nice player. Miles Turner, nice players. They're number 2s, they're number 3s on a championship team. I think Tyrese Haliburton is, a very good number 2 on a potential championship team, but he's not a number 1. And, the Knicks putting up 130 points last night. With Carlisle getting ejected after the NBA officials, they did make a weird call on that double dribble because there was clearly a signal. They said invert whistle, but the referee made a signal. I don't know what to make about that, but the Knicks were going to win the game anyway because the Knicks are just tougher than Indiana. And again, Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, Harvenstein survived for the Knicks that quarter without Jalen Brunson when he went down with the injury. So Celtics probably going to go up 2-0 tonight. Knicks are already up 2-0. I think those two, the number one and the number two seed in the East, will meet in the Eastern Conference Finals. And I think the Knicks will just be out of gas. So, in my opinion, the Celtics, now to be a championship team, it is about 80 to 85% skill, and it is about, 10 to 15% luck. And so I'm not taking anything away from Boston, but I think their road to the finals could have been a lot harder than what it's turned out to be. Over in the West, I'm going to start with Denver and Minnesota because, as I talked about on Tuesday, I am shocked that the Minnesota Timberwolves are up 2-0 in this series after watching the Denver Lakers series. And I know the Lakers, went for 70% of that series. But I watched Denver and said that when all of them are playing well, you cannot beat them. And the bottom line is, really Christian Braun, the role players have not played well in this series. Christian Braun, Reggie Jackson, Aaron Gordon has had his moments. Michael Porter has not been great. And then Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic have not been great. Now, what I think a lot of people are overlooking, and what I've said constantly during the past few days, is I do believe Denver could have won game one. And so even though Minnesota is up 2-0, Denver has the heart of a champion. And I think for the next 3 days, they are going to be hearing the fact that they stink, the T Wolves are better, yada, yada, yada. I think the Nuggets are going to give the Minnesota Timberwolves everything they have. And as much as I love Anthony Edwards, we've seen history show that Rudy Gobert, Karl-Anthony Towns are not great postseason players. But Mike Conley, Jaden Daniels, these guys that Minnesota is throwing at Denver is being, a tough matchup for the Nuggets. And history in the NBA favors the older teams in the playoffs, but history may favor this young team in Minnesota. We have not seen a young man perform on this stage like Anthony Edwards this well since LeBron James. And we've all talked about the fact that Victor Wembanyama, Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic are going to take over this league. It may be the young American Anthony Edwards. And then for the Oklahoma City Dallas series, Oklahoma City was the number one seed, but nobody in the media believed them. I didn't have anybody that I know picking the Thunder to win the championship. And again, it goes back to the T Wolves thing where you just sort of believe that they're too young. The Thunder were the youngest number one seed in the history of the NBA. That historically does not go well. We've had some fraud number one seeds in the past. And the way that Luka and Kyrie had been playing, now Luka has obviously been dealing with that injury, but he played very well against the Clippers, so I didn't make too much of it. But I said the one problem for Dallas in this series was going to be Chet Holmgren, and that was on display in game one. And I think Dallas, needs to go in Oklahoma City. They need to play well, and they probably need to steal game two tonight to have a good chance in this series. But if you would have told me that the Western Conference Finals this year would have been T Wolves Thunder at the start of the year, I don't think anybody had that on their card. I had both of these teams as, 6, 7, maybe 5 seeds if Minnesota got it, but I had Oklahoma City as sort of a lower seed play-in tournament team, specifically with the competition out west. I thought they were going to be an Orlando Magic, who, by the way, I think they got a higher seed because of the East, and I feel like Indiana got a higher seed because of the East. I actually think that Philly, Miami, Indiana, and Orlando, if every team was healthy, would have been switched in the standings. But I thought, Oklahoma City was this young team that was a year away, and they may not be a year away. They may be here to arrive. So out west, we have obviously a 1 versus 5. We have a 2 versus 3. In the east, we have a 1 versus 4. We have a 2 versus 6. I believe that we're going to have a 1 versus 2 in the east, which is the general consensus. And, in the NBA, as I mentioned multiple times, since 1960, only 2 non top 3 seeds have won the NBA championship. So it just goes to show you that as much as we don't love the regular season because players are load managing and all this, what it's proving right now is that the regular season standings do matter to an extent. That when you get in the postseason, the best teams in the regular season do play their best in the postseason. But again, we'll see what happens tonight. Can Dallas pull off an upset? Can Cleveland pull off an upset to get back in this series? And over the weekend, we'll find out if my prediction about Denver getting back in the Minnesota series is true, as well as can Indiana make it a series against the Knicks as that series shifts to the Hoosier State. Like that clip from the Brands World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brands World podcast right here on YouTube.